Welcome to Gold Derby's Q&A panel on the making of Swarm. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by three artists from Amazon Prime Video's Buzzy Limited series. Please help me in welcoming costume designer Dominique Dawson, composer Michael Uzowuru, and production designer Sara K White. Hello, everyone. Thanks for hopping on.
Hey.
Thanks for having us.
So Swarm, it's a thriller, horror, satirical comedy that defies genre. It sent viewers into an absolute frenzy when it premiered on Amazon Prime Video on March 17th, and it came from the brilliant minds of Donald Glover and Janine Neighbors and stars Dominique Fishback as Dre. So I would just love to hear from each of you. You know, it starts off with Dre in that room, getting a credit card, maxing it out on Nyjah tickets. And you can see I got albums on my walls here. I still love my favorite artists. So in the sinister voice of Dre, I would like to ask you all, who's your favorite artist? And I'm going to start with Michael, because I know that as a musician here, you have some good influences.
My favorite artist is probably Andre 3000.
Okay. Why? What did you grow up listening to with him?
All of Outkast hits, all of his features, just everything he did. Pretty great.
Yeah. Sara, how about you?
I actually don't have a favorite. I'm not a person that typically has favorites in a general sense, which was one of the reasons why I was actually drawn to the project, because that sort of fandom is something that I don't get involved in. And it was really interesting to see it and be a part of it and explore it with this. So yeah, I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for, but
No. Dominique, how about you? Who did you grow up loving?
I mean, hands down, my favorite artist is Tina Marie, aka Vanilla Chai. So she sang with Rick James, and every single song that she's done throughout the years, I love the vibe of it. She's such a great storyteller, and she had such a special voice.
And this series addresses celebrity obsession, social media, race, socioeconomics. You all worked so hard behind the scenes on this show. What were your thoughts when you saw the final edit for the first time? When you saw this all come together and you saw the series, what were your first thoughts and what did it mean to be part of it? Sara, let's start with you.
I was really impressed with how it came together. You know, there was a lot of chaos inherent in the script, and the process of making it was super active. We moved from LA to Atlanta in the middle of shooting, and every single episode was new actors, new sets and locations, and a totally different storyline, and even a different year. So that was just a really propulsive experience that kept us going. But it wasn't really until that final project where I saw it all come together that I could see how beautifully the sets, the cinematography, the costumes, the hair, and the music, it all really came together in this super cohesive package that was, I thought, really, really impressive and really exciting, and definitely went farther than I was even imagining it. So it was really cool.
And such a wild ride. I mean, it's just
Wild.
so
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah.
Dominique, how about you? What did this project mean for you?
Well, the fact that it was, this dominant female lead, that you kind of get to go on this whirlwind journey and see her evolution, I just hands down wanted to be a part of it. But for me, when we finally got the final cut, hearing the music in tandem with this, beautiful imagery that was shot exclusively on film, it was so evocative. The soundtrack, to me, I'm so obsessed with. And that's something that we didn't get previous to. We were just creating this world, but we didn't know what it sounded. We kind of had feelings, and he would explain what it sounded like. But once we heard that music, that was so special. And that was the icing on the cake for sure. So I would listen to that by myself. Aside from the show, I would just listen to the music.
Did you even, so you didn't even hear, like when she's watching the music videos, you didn't get any of that?
There was no sound, yeah. There wasn't anything until the very last episode when we have the concert. That snippet that you hear in the concert, which is like a quarter of a song at most, that was literally the only thing that we heard, and that wasn't until the end of the show. So it was, yeah, we got like little inklings, and sometimes like, you know, poking Donald, he would say like, oh, it's sort of like this, but it was definitely like, yeah, more intense than we heard and than we were expecting. It was awesome.
But we did get to go to Mexico City to shoot the music video at the end for that. And that was when I finally got to like feel the heartbeat of Nyjah, you know, because I was like, oh, this is the track. I love it. Great vibe.
Michael, how about you? What did this series mean for you coming on as a composer? This is, I believe, the longest series you composed for. So what did it mean for you to be part of it? And what did you think of the series when you saw it?
When I saw it, I thought it was great. I mean, I was seeing it all piece by piece, episode by episode. They were kind of sending it as things were getting filmed and edited. And it, when it was all kind of said and done, everything put together, it was way better than I could have imagined it to be. And yeah, just the process of just working on it was pretty seamless. I felt like Donald and fam kind of just let me just run loose and just do kind of whatever it is that I wanted to do, whatever it is that I kind of saw and felt. And yeah, it was great. It was it's probably the best experience scoring and composing I've ever experienced.
And you have a history with working with Donald. So, and just for anyone watching, you have a history with most popular music artists right now. And I'm going to get to one in particular a little bit later, but you know, what was that overall tone you spoke about with him and the showrunners to, like, what was the vibe you were going for on this show? What did you know about it going in?
Well, I think the main thing that stuck with me was that it was supposed to be funny in some ways, you know? So some of the cues I didn't try to exactly be 100% horror or like scary, you know? Even if it was a little bit, I you know, I tried to have a like a little sense of like something odd or something's off about it. And yeah, I mean, the main kind of thing is just like, just do what you hear and just do what you feel. So I was just kind of that was my take on what I saw.
One of my favorite things that you did that was low key was just when she would say something and it just went right.
Yeah.
Like that just like made me laugh. It made you feel like, you know, she's a little off, but it
For
didn't
sure
go like
off.
full score at that point.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite scenes that I thought was absolutely hilarious was when Dre was in the food court just telling that crazy story about Nyjah's mom and all that stuff, and then like she made her like drink the milkshake or whatever it was, and then like we put like the strings like right in that like moment. I thought that was personally hilarious. I don't know if anyone else felt that way. Maybe you know, everyone else felt it was kind of creepy, but I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
There's so much comedy weaved into the horror. That's what I loved the most about this show is that, I mean, it really hits you on all levels. Sara, the number of sets and locations you had to work with is staggering, and because she's always moving. So let's just start at the beginning when she's living with Marissa. What does that apartment say about them and where they are in their lives at that point?
We made sure that we really responded to the idea of her growing up in the Third Ward in Houston. And we looked at different housing styles. We shot in LA, so looking through a lot of different housing styles that really responded to that area. But the idea that it's their own space, we can tell that it's an apartment that they have themselves and that they're trying to enter into adulthood. And Marissa's obviously doing a much better job of it than Dre is. So combining the sort of the stunted growth of Dre in her room with some childish accessories versus Marissa's more adult space that is like more on trend. It's definitely a space where she's showing her passions and she's giving herself a space to have this little studio. So she's driving towards her career and her future. That was something that was really important to see and to experience between the two of them. And then in that center space, you can see where both of them bring some elements in there, but they're not really fully developed and they don't have the money or the opportunity to get a lot of decor. So they're scraping stuff together. And we really wanted to make sure that people understood that they didn't have a lot to work with. And they were, Marissa's doing the best that she can. Dre is as well, but she just doesn't have as much to work with. And communicating that to the audience was really important.
And Dominique, there's never enough credit for costume designers when they're working on anything contemporary. People always go right to like period designs and gowns, but this series is so great. Talk about, the look of each of these characters and how they evolve from the beginning, and explain, how the clothing helps tell the story of the character.
Well, we wanted to start with Marissa. She, in Dre's mind, she's idealized this notion of Marissa being like the perfect feminine form, So we definitely wanted to showcase Marissa in a way where she's up on all the fashions, she's making her own stuff, she's accentuating her physique and unafraid to show it off, And then in contrast, having Dre be a total tomboy, very messy, very kind of just unplanned, and awkward. So we started there. And then as she, gains her kind of ability to kill and her knowledge of that craft, she starts to gather some swag too, and she learns about herself. So she's trying on different looks and playing around with stuff. And you can kind of see over the course of the show that by the end, she's really come into her own. And so we just wanted to be able to showcase this kind of like haphazard fashion, which is very much like on the go, but still that she's seeking to find who she is, and eventually she does.
And she does have some glamorous moments. I mean, or stripper glamorous moments. I mean, in the strip club, she's fully made up. I mean, that's sort of a transformation that we see her go through early on in this series. Mm-hmm. What was that like to working in those costumes? Talk about strip club.
Well, it was perfect because we were shooting in Atlanta, so they have all the best stripper stores you could ever want. Custom pieces, everything. I mean, I would go in there and I was just like in love with all of the pieces. But one specific piece, we wanted to do a custom piece that was basically the first time you see her. I felt like it was supposed to be like she was packaged like everything a stripper should be. So I kind of riffed off of like the Michael Jackson glove, like that sparkly, shiny thing, like you can't look away from it, So I built this custom piece with matching chaps that was all encrusted with Swarovski crystals. And that was the first time we saw her. But then she's so awkward in the look. It's just hilarious. Like it's so off-putting, And so then later when we kind of fast forward and she's kind of gotten the hang of things and she's getting better with the art of seduction, then we have her in this kind of like metallic green leopard print, like very cat-like savage look. And she's really just harnessing her sexuality, So we had fun there, definitely.
And Michael, you've worked with a lot of artists, as I mentioned earlier, and one of those is Beyonce. This is called Swarm. and Beyonce is known for having these diehard fans known as the Beehive. So obviously, right off the bat, people are like, "Oh, this is all about Beyonce and the Beehive." What do you think Beyonce thinks about those parallels? And do you have an exclusive for us? Maybe you know what she thinks about those parallels, because no one ever says anything about Beyonce. She's always like tight-lipped.
I have no idea. I honestly didn't even realize that anybody thought the show was about Beyonce. This is brand new news to me.
What was that like? What were your thoughts on this soundtrack as a whole? I mean, you're working as the composer, and then talk about Kirby, the artist who voices Nyjah. What was your work with her in the past, and what do you think of what she did to bring this series all together?
It just wouldn't have worked in my eyes without her and her skill set and everything that she brought to it. She's just brilliant, really, really great singer, really great writer. And we just kind of sat down and we would just watch some scenes, and the fam would be around often. And we would just kind of just like brainstorm like what's the approach to this song. So there's like the first strip club scene with her and I forgot the guy's name, but the guy who ordered the breakfast at the strip club, which I thought that was hilarious. But it was like this really sentimental like song that probably only a humongous fan of an artist would one listen to, but like on top of that, to strip to that type of song that's like talking about like something like about like a little bit of like some death, a little bit of like they're talking about their mom, they're talking about all these like non-stripper things that so that was kind of like how we would like look at things, like, so what's the funniest way, or like what's the most like kind of jarring way to kind of go about some of these scenes and write these lyrics and compose these songs.
Behind the scenes rumors that I would like to clear up real quick. People are saying Malia Obama was on the writing team. Can anyone confirm or deny that? It's one of the things people are saying. She was sort of interning, maybe getting her feet wet in the writing business. Does anyone have any news on that?
I was in the studio, so
Yeah, I was never in the writing room, so I missed that.
We're gonna have to keep that secret then. I want to talk about one of my favorite episodes for a few reasons, and that's number 4, Running Scared. And this is when Dre gets pulled over by a police officer, and then this sort of white savior Cricket comes along and threatens the police officer with how many Instagram followers she has, and then convinces Dre to come to this sort of compound where Eva, played by Billie Eilish, is like this leader of sort of hippies. Dominique, I'll start with you. You're moving into a completely new scene. She's got a completely new look. What was that like for you? Dre's on the road. She's got the denim hat. Her look is completely different. The hair is different. What was that like for you to work in that, and also work with this other cast now that is joining with these other women that are meeting Dre for the first time?
Well, I definitely tried to tap into some like Afrofuturistic vibes for her festival look, because the idea was that she was like on her way to the festival to see Nyjah, So with the big combat boots and, this kind of like Afrocentric sequin dress and the bucket hat, but, she still wears it very awkwardly. And like we purposefully like chose a pair of boots that were like too big just to make her look a little bit more awkward and stand out. And then in contrast, we had, the whole clan of white women, which basically, we just accessed this kind of free people Topanga vibe, very boho.
Thanks.
They weep, like they cry for fun. I mean, this is something that they do.
Yeah. And then you get to see them travel from their like actual clothes into their like cult aesthetic, which, you know, we didn't actually get to spend that much time where they're in that look, but because the action just picked up. But this kind of like very monochromatic, uniformed, you know, linen set that was very jarring and bizarre. So that was fun, just building all of that kind of transition.
And Sarah, get into the compound with me, because what was the thought behind that? I'm thinking specifically, the first thing that pops in my mind is this bedroom that has like 5 beds in it, but like only Dre is sleeping in it.
Yeah.
So what was it like to just sort of create that space? And then there's like the little teepee sort of hut that they meditate or
Sweat
sweat in
lodge.
outside.
Yeah.
Talk about all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing location. It was on the outskirts of Atlanta. It was super beautiful. It was actually a pretty new construction, which is sort of hinted at in the script. But what was great about it is it's really attempting to be authentic. And for these characters, authenticity means like old world, European, and it's drawing heavily from ideas of like the French countryside. And that was something, a lot of that was already there in the architecture. And we just sort of tried to take that to the next level. But we had a great opportunity with those 2 rooms that you mentioned to take it even a step further. The room that ended up being her bedroom was a child's bedroom when we walked into the space. And we pulled pretty directly from like a 1940s mental hospital, the ways that the beds look and they're laid out in that space. If you just, you know, look at an old mental hospital picture, that's pretty spot on. So we tried to just hint at the idea that they're treating newcomers as mental patients that they're going to cure, and they're going to cure it with their pretty fucked up methods. And then going to the sweat lodge, that's another way where they co-opt traditions of other cultures. So that was something that we created from scratch. We built that in situ. And it was really exciting to spend a lot of time actually digging into current new age culture and see the way that people co-opt different cultures and use small items from each thing. We also had a tea ceremony, another co-opted culture that they're using for their own purposes, which are unfortunately deeply misguided, but all in service of what is wellness. So it was really exciting to take this really epic location and just step it up one notch after the next. And even though Dre is the one bringing the creepy vibes in most of the series, like this is a place where I feel like that building of the strangeness of the place hopefully like builds the creep up in the audience, where you realize that it's not a safe place to be no matter who you are. So yeah, it was really fun.
That's one of my favorite things about the episode, is that it feels like the first time that Dre's sort of the one in danger.
Right.
And that's part of the brilliant performance of Dominique, that you even care about Dre at all. I mean, she's this horrible person, but there's something about the viewers that are just still rooting for her. And that's, and Dominique does such a great job in this role. Michael, you have sort of like this piano score in this episode. Talk about how you decide what sort of instruments do instruments have a vibe for you? Like what's a creepy instrument? What's a peaceful instrument?
Yeah, for sure. I do think instruments have a vibe for me. And sometimes going the opposite way is maybe a little bit more creepy or, confusing, which I feel like can be a bit more scary than just knowing you're in danger. But I would say that this episode 4, probably is the one that the actual scenery and like where it was shot and like the location of it really informed what the music actually was, because it was so beautiful, like all those locations, just driving up to that house and just like that garden, and then the rooms the inside, and like where they did the EU is like this kind of like strange room with this like it had like the painted glass.
Yeah.
The yurt scene when they're in that like TP, and then also just like the shot, like the zoomed out shot of the like the TP, you know, you can like see kind of like where they're in. And then yeah, it's just so many just beautiful like nature shots and so many beautiful places that they were at that just completely informed what it is that I created musically. It just kind of felt like the episode to kind of indulge in beauty a little bit.
Do you just have music going through your head constantly? Were you like born a musician, or are you a trained musician? And I'm just fascinated by this because I don't understand how people can still create original music after centuries of music being created. My mind just can't fathom how you do it. So are you a born musician, or did you train, or both?
I for sure trained, maybe not as conventionally as most people. I think that first and foremost, I'm a humongous just music lover, and something about music and my brain just click together in ways that it doesn't for you can put that in, for a lot of things. Thank you so much. But yeah, I do think in some ways it is something that's more part of my nature and just kind of who I am. And it feels like it's just me. It doesn't feel like there's a, you know, any divide between the two. It's just like my mind and music and my identity and music are just kind of all one. So everything kind of just flows through that.
This series takes a complete turn in episode 6, and this is where a lot of viewers lost their minds, because it's suddenly a documentary with completely different actors, and everyone's like, hold on, is this real? What is going on? Did this happen? There's actually an actual phone number you can call if you've seen Dre on the Run, and it's just this brilliant twist, and the whole feeling of the show is completely different. Dominique, talk about your role in that. I'm most curious about Detective Loretta Green, because she's in this sort of police office and everyone's dressed as you would expect them to be, but she's very bold, stands out. She's got a big personality, bold colors. Talk about that episode and your work in that one in particular.
Well, that was an episode where I worked really closely with Stephen Glover. He directed that. And you know, the main thing that we wanted to showcase about her character was that she is this unconventional cop. She's outspoken, jazzy, full of personality. She's a single mom, you know, and her skill is still very sharp, and she's a great detective, but she's just not going to be put in this box. So we did go kind of the extra mile to really showcase her personality through jewelry and through fun patterns and just loud fashion, you know. She's also based off of like a real character, a real person. So we kind of took some examples from that detective and how she dresses as well, and kind of spun off of that.
Sarah, how about you? For this episode?
That episode was actually shot after our main production wrapped. And so I was helping to conceive of some of the elements, but I was unfortunately on another project by the time it ended up shooting. So I felt like some of the ideas that we talked about did come through. It was a very distinct departure visually, and that was really great to see that come to life. But yeah, unfortunately, I was off.
What sort of team does that take? I mean, I mentioned earlier, there's so many sets. What sort of team does that take to bring all that together and how are you choosing locations versus what you need to just build yourself?
Well, in this project, we did have a pretty tight budget. So we were almost exclusively location based. There were very few things that we built. The yurt was one of them. We did build the stage at the end, but augmenting the world to bring Nyjah into it and make sure that it hit all of the marks tonally that was our work. So we did have a part-time construction team, but our set dressing team really ran the show as far as making all of the changes happen. And it was just having lots of trucks running, lots of people running constantly, because they're short episodes, but we go a lot of places very quickly, and we're only shooting things in like a week and a half. So it's pretty intense. Just constantly keeping the team rolling and just keeping the ideas flowing, and having a team where, you know, I can talk to the locations team and be like, okay, like we need something that has these certain furnishing elements available to us, or we know that we don't have a scenic team available for us in this one time. So we need to make sure that the walls are painted in this kind of color palette. So it was really just balancing and collaborating in all of those ways to make sure that we had what we needed.
What did you all think about this? How it started every episode, like this is not a work of fiction. And then it went into this documentary. It was like a tease, and no one really ever knew exactly what was going on. I read an article where Janine Neighbors had said that, I mean, she's like, oh, I cleared everything with Amazon. Like, this is all legal. Because there are little pieces that are picked from the headlines. Were you aware of that was the case behind the scenes as you were filming, or was that sort of new to you when you saw that come up? And what did you think about it?
Yeah, it was something that I talked to Janine about right from the beginning, because even from the first interview, I knew that was the idea, that it's in the very first script, it's the top line. And I wanted to really understand, like, okay, like where are these coming from? And that's why we moved from different locations, from different cities and different states, is because some of these murders were set in these cities. And so we're pulling from these local things that happened. And it really did help to give us a sense of place. But yeah, I really loved learning about all of these different the different murders that happened, but also the different experiences that fandom had in the world. So yeah, it was really cool to talk about that on the backside. Yeah.
Was anyone else surprised by that?
Well, it was in the script, so, you know, we had that information from the jump, but I think what it does is, even when just reading it, you know, it sets you on edge from the beginning. It's a great device to just kind of jerk you and kind of be like, wait, hold on, I thought this is pretend, and now I'm rethinking this, you know? So you never really know what's what, and that's a great place to leave your audience in, you know what I mean? It's a great game to play. So I thought it was genius.
I felt like one of the things that it did was made me really think about grounding all of the people too, like, like with Tonk, like making sure that his house, which is so specifically unique, and brought in all of these different elements of his personality. Like, he's sweet, but he can be like a real jerk, and he can be really thoughtless. That was something, like making sure that was based on a real person. And so you want to express that and be sort of responsive to that life that was truly lived.
I have a question about the location of Tonk's house. It was like a mid-century modern house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool and like special, especially that style of mid-century modern in the woods like that. What was it like finding a place like that, and was that like on purpose?
It was something that we were looking for certain architectural features in order to heighten the feelings of drama. And that was something that we did also in the first episode in their apartment, having long hallways so that we see the approach of her when she's stalking her prey. That was something that was really important. We knew there were going to be a lot of characters, so having an open living room that was easily accessible and easily shootable was super important for us. And I liked the idea of it being mid-century because you have this long, low sort of ranch style house that there's an sort of a feeling of oppression with the ceilings when you have a long expanse where you can see them. So that was really exciting. And finding that house, that wallpaper was actually something that was there. The amazing floral wallpaper in the bathroom, that was just like a gift that we got from the locations gods. And I thought that it really reflected the idea of his personality so well. This is not a home that he selected. It's a home that like maybe was his parents or maybe his wife or like his wife's sister, like let them
It feels like
stay in
someone's
it.
grandma's house.
Yeah, it's got this like layer of humanity in it that comes from his past and him having a past, not just having a kid, but having a whole life story. You've got some barbecue trophies in there next to his katanas. Like he's got a life story that's being expressed in there. And it was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also the outfits in that episode, really good. Really, really cool. But I think probably my favorite episode as far as like costume wise goes is the last episode where Dre is just like has the haircut, has like she's wearing like, you know, like the baggy clothes, she's dressed like, you know, like some guys maybe like in Atlanta would like typically dress or something like that. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And I didn't see that coming at all. And just like the way that kind of transformed her character was, to me, absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite moments? I mean, for me, it was episode 4 when she like runs Billie Eilish over with the car twice. I mean, it's just so shocking, and I give props to Billie for being in the show. And then my other favorite scene was her interaction with the guy at the cell phone store. I just that was so.
That was good. That was good. I think
Michael,
one of
you
my
can go
favorite
ahead.
moments was I don't know if anyone else caught it or thought it was as funny, but it was when her foster dad when he was in the kitchen and he was having that like long drawn like, you know, speech, and then he threw in part of what Will Smith said at the Emmys, where he was like, you know, when he said that Denzel told him in like, at your darkest hour or something like that, you know, the devil comes for you, whatever. Like, I thought that was absolutely hilarious. That just being just randomly just like slid in there with
totally.
Like, you know what I mean? I thought that was just so funny. But yeah, anytime
that hit different, like
right, it was. I remember like seeing that in one of the first edits, and I was like, this has to stay. This is just way too funny. This is, and it might just only be funny to me or just like a few people, but it was just, I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And anytime that she would tell someone, but you did, I thought that would just always just get me every single time.
I love that too.
Some of my favorites.
That episode also had one of your most memorable scores for me, when it's just like this symphony of music happening as he's trying to she sprints out of the house.
Yeah, that was fun because that was a I don't know, it's nice working on projects like this because it allows me to do things the way I do when I make albums and songs, where there's like a lot of experimenting. You know, you can experiment a lot, you can kind of just like throw things at the wall and kind of see what sticks. And that kind of what that was. It was just like running this chord generator through all these like plugins to like create like a bunch of like dissonance, but like kind of spread it out and make it kind of crazy. And we just kept just building it and building it and building it, and then adding in strings after that. And then it all kind of just like became this super intense thing that just, you know, and some people probably could feel like it lasted too long. And that's kind of what I wanted it to kind of feel like. It was just really like uncomfortable, and you don't know where it's going. You don't know what it is or what it isn't. And then it all kind of goes into the end song, the Erykah Badu song, you know, in a very specific way. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Dominique, you have to talk about the bee outfit. Talk about Nigel's bee outfit.
So at the very last episode, you know, it's the big finale, and we're finally getting to see Nyjah perform on stage. So I wanted to, you know, based off of Hive and the Swarm, create a look that was feeling like a bumblebee, like queen bee, you know? So I utilized a lot of black sequins and gold. We did our own custom beret, gloves up to here with like these, we did this special ostrich feather along the gloves so that it kind of had like the hairs of a bee, and this amazing corset leotard, and she had these to die for gold boots that were YSL. And so it was her and all her bees surrounding her. And it's so interesting because now Beyonce is on tour and she is rocking this like amazing bee constructed look that is of the same color scheme. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, I love that we were aligned, you know?
Sarah, what was your favorite moment of the series, or one of your favorite episodes or scenes?
I mean, they were all so unique. I think one thing that I really enjoyed doing was her childhood home. It's so specific to an era and said so much about what her family was and gave to her, which was to say not much. It's a place that's very much about the appearance of having everything pulled together. And then on the inside, it is deeply messed up. And it's also this moment where she thinks that she has this all figured out. She feels like she's in her power with all of these killings, and she's done it so successfully that she feels like she can go back and like confront her demons. And she can't. Like, it doesn't go well for her. She gets schooled, and that was something that was really interesting for me to like put together. And I just love like tacky 90s like real hard. So doing that and just like going all the way on that was really fun.
Yeah, when we see that at the beginning, Marissa and Dre in that apartment, that's not the house we would think that they came from. So it's really interesting to see that. And just each episode is like a chapter, and they're also fascinating. All the actors that came through each episode. Paris Jackson was great, and Billie Eilish, who I mentioned earlier. I mean, they're all so much fun, and it's just hilarious to watch. Such a great series. All of you should be so proud of what you accomplished with this show, and also what a performance from Dominique Fishback. I mean, if not for her, this series would not be what it is. She really led the way with. I'm so happy that this allowed her start to shine, and this was her show that she was able to own. Hopefully we see as many of your names as possible when those Emmy nominations come out in a few weeks, and congratulations on some incredible work. Thanks for joining the Gold Derby Swarm panel.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
It was also just an honor to be able to work with you guys on this. Everything that you guys did was super special and made my job so much more inspiring and fulfilling and easier to do.
Well, please let me know how I can get in on that music, because I want to listen to it. Like, I need a soundtrack. It was so amazing. Like, it's such a vibe.
Thank you.
Yeah.